2021 has been quite the incredible year for baseball, as so many young players have emerged as top talents. However, no season has been better than the historic season of Shohei Ohtani. Ever since Ohtani signed with the Angels in 2017, we've wondered what the full potential of a two-way player looks like. And well, now we know. However, Ohtani's journey to MLB was unconventional, to say the least. Ohtani joined MLB at age 23 after 5 seasons in NPB, Japan's professional baseball league. However, did you know that Ohtani tried to join MLB at age 18? The problem is that if Ohtani did join MLB at age 18, he likely wouldn't be the two-way superstar that he is today. To understand why this is the case, we need to head back to 2012. Before I do that, I want to thank this comment for inspiring this video to be made. And if you have your own butterfly effect scenario you want me to cover, leave it down in the comments. In October 2012, Ohtani was 18 years old and was ready to join professional baseball. However, he was looking to do something unprecedented. He wanted to be the first player to forego NPB and go straight to MLB out of high school. And it's not like MLB teams didn't know Ohtani existed. In fact, 8 teams, including the Yankees, Dodgers, Red Sox, and Rangers, were all chasing Ohtani's signature. I guess that's what happens when you're throwing nearly 100 miles per hour in high school and breaking velocity records in the process. Scouts said that Ohtani's potential ranged from a mid-rotation starter to a Yu Darvish type pitcher. However, he wasn't just skilled on the mound, he could hit too. It's not uncommon to see high school players have skills on both the mound and the batter's box. However, these players end up picking one or the other when they go pro. But Ohtani wanted to do both. Although MLB teams weren't exactly keen on letting Ohtani hit and pitch. While he was a solid hitter, his potential as a pitcher was sky high given the velocity at such a young age. If Ohtani wanted to play in MLB and start in the minor leagues, he was going to have to settle as a pitcher. Of course, moving to the US wasn't Ohtani's only option. He could also enter the 2012 NPB draft. However, he had told teams prior to the draft that he was pursuing a move to MLB, so he didn't want anyone to draft him. If you don't know how the NPB draft works, basically the first round is like a lottery, where all 12 teams pick a player of their choice. However, multiple teams can pick the same player. If that happens, a lottery draw occurs, where one team wins the rights to the player and the losing teams have to pick someone else. So, with Ohtani declaring his intentions to play in MLB, he scared off most teams, as many teams turned their sights on high school pitcher Shintaro Fujinami. He would be selected by 4 teams, with the Hanshin Tigers winning his draft rights. But if you paid close attention to what I said about Ohtani, he scared most teams off, not all of them. Let me introduce you to the Hokkaido Nippon Ham Fighters. Prior to 2004, the Fighters shared a stadium with the Yomiuri Giants, Japan's baseball powerhouse. Then the Fighters moved to a new stadium in the city of Sapporo, the largest city in the Hokkaido prefecture. Not too long after, an 18-year-old pitcher named Yu Darvish was drafted by the Fighters. Led by American manager Trey Hillman, the Fighters won the Japan Series in 2006. During his stint with the Fighters, Hillman helped instill non-traditional practices into the organization, particularly with the focus of analytics and player evaluation. The team would eventually become the first in NPB to use openers and the first in decades to use defensive shifts. So how does this relate to Ohtani? Well, the team that drafted Ohtani was the most forward-thinking organization in Japanese baseball. They were not afraid to take chances. It was a risk in itself to draft Ohtani in the first place, especially considering in the previous year's draft, the Fighters drafted top prospect Tomoyuki Sugano, despite his desires to play for the Yomiuri Giants, who also drafted him. The Fighters won the lottery, but Sugano refused to sign with the Fighters. The Fighters would receive no compensation for the lost pick, and Sugano would be drafted by the Giants in the 2012 draft. Given what happened with Sugano, clearly the Fighters thought they had a chance to sign Ohtani despite his dismissive comments after the draft. So how are they going to convince Ohtani to sign with them? His heart had been set on MLB since he was in school. It wasn't about the money, it was about chasing a dream. Also, even the fighters hadn't been sold at Ohtani's potential as a two-way player. But Ohtani held major leverage in that he could move to the US and the fighters would lose a first-round pick for the second straight season. As a result, Ohtani was shown a PowerPoint presentation called The Path to Realizing Shohei Ohtani's Dream. This presentation did two things. It showed how nearly every successful Japanese MLB player began their pro career in NPB, and it presented the numerous negatives of the minor league baseball experience in the US. Moving to the US would be a massive culture shock for Ohtani, and once you pile on the negatives of the minor league baseball experience, it really made Ohtani question whether moving to the US would be the right decision so early in his career. Also, if Ohtani did move to MLB and it didn't work for some reason, he wouldn't be able to play in Japan right away. A few years earlier, pitcher Junichi Tazawa skipped the NPB draft and was signed by the Red Sox. As a result, a rule was made by the NPB league front office, which stated that high school players who skipped the NPB draft for outside leagues would have to wait 3 years after they returned to the country to be eligible for the draft. For college players, this number was 2 years. This rule was abolished in 2020, but at the time, this was likely a serious point made by the fighters in their presentation. However, the most important aspect of the pitch was the unique plan on how to develop Ohtani. Not only would Ohtani be in familiar cultural surroundings, he would be allowed to work on becoming a two-way player. He was sold the idea of being NPB's only two-way player. He could be the pioneer of a new era of baseball. Ohtani was convinced. He signed a multi-year contract with the fighters with the understanding that once Ohtani was ready to move on to MLB, the fighters would post his rights without hesitation. This presentation, yes, this presentation you see on screen, convinced Ohtani to stay in Japan. Do I understand anything in this presentation? Absolutely not. I don't know anything about the Japanese language. But what I do know is that this presentation changed baseball history. At the age of 18, Ohtani made his debut with the fighters. The numbers weren't amazing, but the organization allowed Ohtani to split time in the minor leagues so he could really focus on his craft. There were days where he would pitch for the minor league team in the daytime and hit for the major league team at night. He was never purposely swayed into one direction. The team let Ohtani work at his own pace. Although being 18 years old in a professional league, he was placed on many restrictions so the media wouldn't hound Ohtani at every turn, such as the inability to go out to dinner after games with teammates. Ohtani had to stay at the hotel or dormitory, although this wasn't really much of an issue for Ohtani since he tended to stay in the gym anyway. This experiment ultimately paid off in 2016. After a couple great pitching seasons and one good hitting season, Ohtani finally put it all together with his MVP season in 2016. As a result of these insane numbers, Ohtani made his 4th straight All-Star game, was voted into the Pacific League's best 9 as both the pitcher and designated hitter, and he was the Pacific League MVP. Oh, and he became a Japan Series champion too. It took a few seasons, but Ohtani was able to prove that a two-way player can exist and thrive in modern baseball. After another successful season, Ohtani would sign with the Angels in December 2017. Like in Japan, it has taken a while for Ohtani to fully realize his potential as a two-way player in a new league. In fact, if we go back to spring training in 2018, evaluators were writing off Ohtani's two-way potential. However, 4 seasons into his MLB tenure, the same amount of time it took between Ohtani's NPB debut and his MVP season, Ohtani is the face of MLB, and barring any unforeseen circumstances, he will win the AL MVP award. And this all stems from the presentation the Hokkaido Nippon Ham fighters made that persuaded Ohtani to stay in Japan. If that presentation doesn't happen, Ohtani moves to the US at 18 18 years old, is converted into a pitcher, and we never see the true impact of a two-way star. Who knows how many two-way players there will be in the next couple decades because of Ohtani's success. It's going to be truly amazing to see what the baseball landscape looks like in the next 10 to 20 years. Now, before I go, I want to get a discussion going in the comments. Because Ohtani was signed before the age of 25, he was considered an amateur free agent, so he couldn't command a big money major league deal. So he signed a contract with a signing bonus of $2.3 million. At the time, it was said that between the ages of 23 and 30, Ohtani was projected to produce $200 million in value. Of course, this was based on projections prior to Ohtani ever stepping foot on an MLB field, but he has lived up to his potential, but he's currently making $3.5 million, a number far lower than you'd expect. Next year, he will make $5.5 million, but that number will likely quadruple in 2023 if Ohtani goes through arbitration, although who knows what happens with CBA negotiations coming after the season. Anyway, let's just say Ohtani becomes a free agent at age 29 and he continues to produce the 40-plus home run power while throwing electric stuff as a pitcher. What kind of contract does Ohtani sign? This is uncharted territory, especially if Ohtani chooses to leave the Angels. I'm curious what you guys think he would sign for, and even where he would sign if he left the Angels. Also, after you leave that comment and subscribe to Start Raving Sports, check out my newest video on my channel on the biggest baseball scandal you've never heard of, the Black Mist scandal. I truly think it's the best video I've ever made, so if you're interested, go check that out. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, and thanks for watching.